Welcome to the CRO Talks podcast, the companion podcast for the CRO Roundtable, a bite-sized chunk of content summarizing a recent roundtable discussion topic. So today, let's get into visualizing uncertainty, meaning like how do we communicate the level of certainty or assuredness that we have in the data to enable stakeholders to make decisions based on the information that we're providing to them.
Yeah, so typically this would be after you finish a test, you would present a scorecard, even though I hate scorecards.
Well, you have to report. You have to report out some way.
You have to report out some way. And so if you think of like the scorecard, they would say, hey, this was a 10% uplift, and here's how certain we are. Now, if the business is going to make a decision, a really super important decision, like maybe a pivot or something like that, then it needs to know, hey, how certain are we with these results in order to make that decision? And generally, this is communicated as a percentage significance or whatever.
Yeah, so in the first place, it's actually important to report certainty levels to begin with, beyond just reporting like uplift, or loss, or whatever, whatever the level of change was.
Yes, I think so. Unless you have like a very hard cutoff at a very high sort of significance level or whatever. But basically, yeah, it's good to always report that certainty level or that uncertainty level of a test. And it's particularly important with non-inferiority tests, or really difficult with non-inferiority tests. So say for superiority tests.
And what's non-inferiority real quick?
So superiority is what we generally think of. Hey, we're launching this. We think this button color is going to kill it and make us 10 billion pounds. Non-inferiority is saying, hey, we're going to make this change. We just don't want to have a negative impact, but we just need to, for instance, roll out this design change and then work off the back of it. We don't need a win. We just don't want a loss. So basically just want to protect. It's a protective.
Superiority is explicitly evaluating for improvement. Non-inferiority is evaluating for not making it worse.
Yes. And when it comes to that, you can start to see how it gets quite fuzzy in terms of, because whereas with a superiority, you can have like a very stringent set of rules to determine, like, okay, if it meets these rules,
pre-calculating your duration and runtime and your MDE and all that. Like you have, right? You measure your MDE of like, this is our values.
Yeah. And with a non-inferiority, by default, you're probably not going to see any significant impact there. But how certain are we that when I switch, for instance, from this API to this API, that it's actually not having a negative impact? How certain are we that we can, after 2 weeks, shift our entire application from one backend to another backend? So that demands like a certainty level or an uncertainty level.
Or a more classic example of like wanting to do a site redesign.
Yeah.
Like, well, if you're going to do a redesign, you at least want to make sure that the new design is not worse than the old one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are some different ways of actually visualizing uncertainty?
I mean, there's the traditional just blanket, give them a percentage significance. And then there's also some of the, the normal distribution curves to show how overlapping the normal distribution curves are and stuff like that. But there's also, and this is something that was
is distribution curve overlap. That's traditionally what you see with like confidence interval bars, correct?
Yes. So when you use like an A/B test calc or whatever, you'll see those on the screen. You'll see
you can see the two bell curves and how they overlap. Well, like those confidence interval bars that you see a lot of times and that some of the A/B test tools show. Like think of that as like the bottom of those bell curves, like showing like where they overlap and where they don't overlap.
Yes. And then there's a different type of framing of uncertainty visualization. This is something I came across when I was doing some work, whereas mostly data visualization on a dashboard and describing the certainty level to these were product owners, but not web product, but basically, like shop product, like bleach and stuff like that, those kind of products, where they're doing formulations and trying to create new formulations. How certain are we that this new formulation is better than this formulation while maintaining the same whiteness level, etc.? What I found in the research for that is that there is an entire sort of almost like an entire field in uncertainty visualization, and there's something called frequency framing, which is where you present the data in terms of frequency or counts. So, for instance, you can say out of 4 out of 5, or 3 out of 5, or 6 out of 10, and framing certainty that way. I came across a number of studies that were pointing out that the human mind is better able to deal with uncertainty levels framed in that way rather than in percentage numbers. And it ended up like people are generally making better decisions. And there's a number of studies that were taking place. Maybe we'll link them in the notes for this. But yeah, it's just indicating that frequency framing is generally more widely understood than like probabilistic framing.
Yeah. So frequency framing being like, instead of saying there's a 70% chance that this data is accurate, you're saying like in 7 out of 10 cases this would behave this way. So and that allows like you to more easily communicate and think about like, in 7 out of 10 cases, so that means that like 3 out of 10 times this might not be right. Am I okay with like am I okay with being wrong 3 out of 10 times?
Yeah, exactly.
Or do I or is it like, I really only want to, like, I need that to be like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. Although, like that kind of thing. Like, we really need to be sure that like every time it's correct. And so you frame it that way, it makes a non-technical or non-statistically minded person more easily able to consume and make decisions based on that information.
Yeah, and it's actually a framing that is used often in gambling. So one in the odds. The odds are 1 in 1,000 or whatever. And so and that is generally the way that people can understand the odds better in terms of the risk they're taking. So product teams and teams in general, before they're making a decision, if they know the odds, that they, as the studies are showing, that they're generally able to make decisions better as a result.
Yeah. So what are some of the other like common pitfalls or traps that people fall into when not using like or missing out on like uncertainty visualization?
I think in general, just when communicating, and we've spoken about it before a lot, and it's oftentimes, and this is the reason why I say that I hate scorecards. It's oftentimes propaganda. So scorecards are very popular when you want to look good, and that's generally how the scorecards are kind of positioned in terms of trying to paint a pretty picture of the test in order to prove its value, prove its worth. an agency.
How many overly pretty case studies have we seen people post on LinkedIn that have reports that are very easy to poke holes into?
Exactly. So basically, it's not only do we need to have like
smoke and mirrors and obfuscation of like only reporting you're not reporting the full amount of data, you're only reporting the thing that makes it look good, right? You're chasing effect rather than accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. And then
but there could be I mean that's more like soft skills, like business considerations of like, well, if you have a benchmark or goal to hit of like, hey, we need to have a 50% win rate for all of our tests, right? There's some perverse incentivization there to start misreporting on things. And so striving for accuracy, you should be reporting accurately on all this stuff so that the appropriate decision is made. Whereas like if you're slicing that stuff up and misreporting because you're trying to hit a benchmark for a goal that you've been set because your job is on the line or whatever, like that leads to incorrect decision making.
Yeah, and not only that, but there's oftentimes the uncertainty levels are just left out completely, or just kind of made needlessly complicated to understand and not very clear whatsoever. So so basic is because a lot of the time people don't want to communicate the fact that we've got a result and we've seen like
it's not the result we wanted,
but it's maybe there's a degree of uncertainty to that result where a lot of the times it's that uncertainty level is just left out or left ambiguous or whatever in order to really promote the test and really promote the decision that the team wants to make as a result of that. So like like you mentioned, the number
testing theater
LinkedIn posts. Yeah, and the number of LinkedIn posts to say, yep, we made the £10 billion increase, and don't ask us any more questions about the stats. And the other thing is like
we were discussing a test result with Shiva not too long ago where it was a case study that he had found where the test result, they were reporting a monthly revenue increase that was more than the company made in revenue like throughout the entire year. Like if you were like this test made an extra $1 million a month, which means it makes $12 million a year, but the company's annual revenue was only like $5 million or something. It was like, oh, one test is more than double the revenue of the entire company. Like, no, come on, get out of here. Like, that's the kind of stuff that needs to have holes punched in it. And there's there's no uncertainty reporting done in that case. It's just like, look, we made you gobs and gobs of money. We're great. Continue to employ us.
Yeah, and with that as well, actually, this is something else that I see quite a lot is basically doing stats on revenue itself. So basically, like the test brought in £100,000, the control brings in £90,000. Now let's just do a simple statistics calculation on that. It's like that's not how it works.
No,
that doesn't work. There's such a degree of variability in the on the size of the orders where you have specific outliers which could push the variation out, the control out, and then what that fuzziness level
revenue
is now
reporting is a whole other can of worms, right? Like statistics that we're talking about of like those are designed for binary data, meaning like, was this action performed, yes or no? revenue is not a binary piece of data. It is a range. Like someone can place an order for $10. Someone else could place an order for $3,000. There's variabilities within the degree of the number being reported. Yeah, and you need to look for outliers that are outside of the norm. That's something that I do. Like I have multiple discrete revenue goals for each client, where we have a unique threshold of like, if an order outside of over a particular range, it gets flagged as an outlier. And like we have one goal that reports the totality of all revenue, and then another goal that says like, only give me the data for orders that are under $1,000, because we think like anything over $1,000 is going to be like a large order that might skew things or something like that, right? So there's also a level of accuracy there. Well, and also and like you said, it's not like you can't just take two revenue numbers and run a regular statistical calculation against it, because it's not a binary data point. That's like a completely other different. There's a completely other different method for calculating statistical significance for non-binary data like that.
And it feeds into this uncertainty level as well, because your visualizing of uncertainty level, say for instance for that post you were talking about, where Shiva posted about, the revenue figures are completely over and above what they were making on an annual perspective. If they were doing their stats on revenue, if they actually visualize the uncertainty level of that revenue figure, that this is what we think the revenue is, maybe as a heat map or whatever it is, that visualizing of that uncertainty, then you would really see how fuzzy and how uncertain that result is.
The standard deviation for something like that would be like off the scale.
Yeah, well, yeah, and basically what it does is it lays bare for all to see, like that level of, hey, we think this is how much the test won by, but look at the uncertainty level, and then it would just lay bare just how uncertain that result is. So I guess that's my problem with scorecards is when they're used in that sort of way as kind of propaganda.
It distills the data down too much to be
yes.
useful. Like it needs added levels of
It needs those extra level of complexity that usually are missed out on scorecards, which are needed to basically just kick the tires on the test results. And generally the scorecards just kind of wrapped up.
It's giving the person the wrap up to inform. Well, I also wonder, like, this could be an organizational thing as well, of like, a scorecard isn't inherently bad if the person that's preparing it is the one that's doing the analytics work, and like providing a sound score. Like the assumption is like that score, like the data within the scorecard is sound to enable the decision maker to make that decision. Like the assumption is like the statistics have been like paid careful attention to, when in reality that's not the actual case.
Yeah, I mean, a scorecard does have its use in terms of to communicate a certain perspective or a certain sort of slice of that of the information for that test. So for instance, if it was a slide deck going out on a weekly basis to the whole company, and then you concluded 10 tests, and then you just said these are the scorecards, and it just gives you a little whetting of an appetite to say this is what happened. As long as, like, if your scorecards shouldn't be used to make a decision out of, it should be a very specific view, and you should know that that specific view has been edited to communicate something very specific. I'm saying specific a lot, but to communicate something very, very specific to you. So as long as you approach it from that perspective,
as long as there's transparency of context for what is being communicated.
Yeah, but if you wanted, if you were to have a scorecard for that communicates across all tests in the same way, it probably doesn't really exist, because tests can be quite messy. And so, to ask a very, very simple question, was this a win or was this a loss? And, what did we learn? It's generally not that clear cut, because there's lots of insights, there's levels of uncertainty for those insights. If there's been revenue figures generated from there, there'd be an uncertainty level around that. And yeah, it's just basically a lot of fuzziness, which on a scorecard doesn't make sense to communicate, because you're just kind of maybe communicating to the C-suite. So yeah, I may be being overly negative on the scorecards, but I just don't like them.
Yeah.
So I don't like scorecards. I don't look at them. Give me the real data, so I can yeah.
All right, great. As always, if anyone has any questions, feedback, or you disagree with something that me and Iqbal said, you can talk to us face-to-face at CRO Roundtable every Friday, and you can find that either on the CRO Talks LinkedIn page or at CROTalks.com. If you're shy or don't like speaking, you can always DM either of us directly on LinkedIn. We're also both pretty active on the Test and Learn community Slack as well. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.